Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you're sitting there thinking the chief AI officer is basically just an IT guy who knows how to write a good ChatGPT prompt, well, we're about to completely shatter that illusion today. If you're seriously focused on understanding how businesses are actually going to survive and thrive over the next decade, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're diving headfirst into a really rigorous, totally vendor-agnostic 200-hour executive syllabus. It's a blueprint designed for a role that is rapidly becoming literally the most critical position in the C-suite, the modern chief AI officer. We're going to unpack exactly how these leaders are being trained to safely and effectively reinvent the modern enterprise.
So I want you to seriously ask yourself, who is actually leading AI in your organization right now? Because right now, across the globe, companies are just haphazardly adopting AI tools. They're deploying models in these isolated little silos without any sort of overarching strategic vision, no secure governance, and definitely no coordinated workflow redesign. And frankly, this scattered Wild West approach is exactly why there is an urgent, undeniable need for a highly structured, accountable chief AI officer.
To get us there, we'll take an accelerated journey through this syllabus. We're going to cover, first, defining the Chief AI Officer. Second, adoption versus business reinvention. Third, the actual blueprint of the CAIO. Fourth, navigating risk and autonomy. And finally, the ultimate capstone challenge. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The Chief AI Officer. Governing the AI paradigm shift. We need to clear the air right out of the gate. A CIO is not just a glorified IT director, and they certainly aren't just a standalone data scientist who happen to get a fancy executive title. Actually, scratch that. They are deeply accountable enterprise leaders. This role demands a total organizational paradigm shift. You see, a real CIO doesn't just manage technology. They coordinate intimately with the CIO, the chief HR officer, the CFO, all to take ownership of end-to-end enterprise workflows. They are in the backroom coding. They are literally rewiring the DNA of the company. It's all about making sure AI is a core capability that completely transforms how the entire organization runs.
And just to really underscore how serious this is, 200 hours. To put that into perspective, that is often way more rigorous than your standard executive MBA certificate. This isn't a quick weekend crash course on chatbots. This proposed syllabus demands 200 academic hours of intense study, and it's built specifically for executives who already have over 10 years of professional experience. It proves, without a doubt, that governing AI is a deeply strategic, multidisciplinary commitment spanning data, strategy, governance, risk, and economics.
Section 2. Adoption versus business reinvention. Breaking the iteration trap. Now here's where we get to the fundamental philosophy that underpins this entire curriculum. There is a massive, profound difference between simple AI adoption and actual business reinvention. Adoption is easy, right? It's just buying a new AI software license or maybe adding a generative tool to one specific department. And honestly, it's what most companies are doing today. But reinvention? That demands elevating the organization to a whole new level. It means completely redesigning end-to-end workflows, totally rethinking decision rights, and transforming the whole operating model so that AI becomes a native, breathing part of the enterprise. Because if you only focus on adoption, you fall straight into what the syllabus calls the iteration trap. This is the fatal strategic mistake of taking these incredibly powerful AI technologies and using them just to optimize your old, clunky legacy processes. Think about it. If you take a broken business process and just make it 10% faster using AI, that's basically like putting a rocket engine on a horse and buggy. You are completely missing out on real, new value creation. A well-trained CIO knows how to sidestep this trap entirely and push for genuine, ground-up innovation. Section 3. Blueprint of the CIO. The vendor-agnostic curriculum. The full syllabus actually spans 24 distinct modules, but they all boil down to these 5 core pillars. And here's the golden rule you need to remember. It is strictly vendor-agnostic. This is about enduring decision frameworks, not a giant advertisement for some cloud provider. A CAIO absolutely must master data strategy and readiness, build a resilient enterprise AI architecture, and establish airtight AI governance. They also have to rigorously understand TEVV, which for those who don't know stands for testing, evaluation, verification, and validation, just to guarantee systems are safe. And finally, they have to be masters of AI economics. Speaking of AI economics, the syllabus introduces this brilliant comparative formulation called infinite ROI. Instead of just obsessing over standard cost cutting, a modern CITO looks at value drivers multiplied by learning velocity on the top, divided by the friction factors on the bottom, which are time to outcome and the organization's resistance to change. So play this out with me. If your team absolutely refuses to use the new system, your resistance to change is basically infinite. And mathematically, that means your ROI drops to straight zero, regardless of how many millions you spend on the tech. Pretty eye-opening, right?
Section 4. Navigating risk and autonomy. Governing human agent teams. As we hit the deep end of the syllabus, we really have to define what exactly we are risking here. And the major focus is agentic AI. We are not talking about cute little chatbots answering FAQs anymore. These are autonomous and semi-autonomous systems that can actively plan, reason, use digital tools, and execute external actions on behalf of your company. Grasping this is an absolute prerequisite for security and governance, because an AI that can take action is an AI that can make highly consequential, highly expensive mistakes. To manage those massive risks, the CAIO has to build an absolute fortress of guardrails. First, you set strict authority limits, basically capping what an agent is allowed to do or even how much money it can spend. Then, you demand rock-solid pilot evidence before you ever take the training wheels off and expand their autonomy. You enforce policies in real time to catch any bad behavior. And crucially, literally the most important part, you build the kill switches and safe states. It's a strategic story of safe escalation, moving from simple automation to augmentation and finally up to autonomy, but never, ever removing accountability. Now, this concept brilliantly shifts the whole workforce conversation. The human-agent ratio isn't some secret corporate code for mass layoffs. No, it is a pure organizational design metric. It asks, how many digital agents can one human effectively manage, like a supervisor? By focusing on this ratio, the CIO protects human accountability, ensures there's still meaningful human work, and manages the systemic risk in an always-on digital-first operation.
Section 5. The Ultimate Capstone Challenge. The Final Executive Defense.
So after nearly 200 hours of grueling coursework, candidates have to face a 12-hour mandatory trial to prove they are actually ready for the real world. They have to choose between two highly realistic tracks. Track A is about completely transforming an existing legacy business process. Track B is about designing a brand new AI-enabled organizational capability totally from scratch. Either way, they have to prove their applied CIO competence in a messy, real-world scenario.
Candidates are guided through a really rigorous progression to get there. They start by documenting the current as-is state. Then, and this is a brilliant trap, by the way, they have to provide an explicit non-AI alternative. They have to prove to the panel that a boring, traditional software solution wouldn't just be cheaper and better. Only if AI is truly mathematically justified do they move on to design the to-be workflow, covering the architecture, the data, the security, and the economics, all before stepping into a live panel defense. During that final defense, the assessment panel challenges the candidate on absolutely everything, from business value down to catastrophic failure scenarios. And the candidate? They have to demonstrate the executive judgment to make one of 5 calls on their own initiative: approve, modify, delay, reject, or terminate. That last one is a big deal. A true CIO must have the executive courage to look at a shiny multi-million-dollar AI project and just pull the plug if the risks are too high or the governance isn't totally airtight. And that brings us to the defining executive challenge question from the entire syllabus. If we designed this organization today with AI as a native capability, what would we do differently? It's such a profound thought exercise. It pushes leaders way past that iteration trap we talked about earlier and forces true fundamental reinvention. So I'm going to leave you with that exact question to provoke your own strategy today. If you erased your company right now, how would you rebuild it? Thanks so much for doing this explainer. Now go start reinvent it.